Good evening, all, and thank you for coming. This is Traffic and Transportation Committee. Today is Thursday, April 17, 2025, and I am Debbie Allen, the Traffic and Transportation Committee Chairperson. And the members of the committee is en route. I don't have a hold the committee and our presenters up, so we are going to get started. So if DOT can please give us an update on Bailey Avenue, the safety and the improvements that they have done thus far.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy I joined at the right time. My name is Anthony Perez. I am the Bronx Borough Commissioner at NYC DOT, and I'm joined here by several colleagues of mine, both from our Bronx office, as well as two of our units. They will each be making one presentation today. So the first one, as you mentioned, is an update from our Public Realm unit, and this is an update on a project that we presented last year regarding Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey Avenue at that intersection. And then after that, we have another unit, our Research Implementation and Safety Unit, that will present a project to make safety improvements along Bailey Avenue from that same intersection all the way down to 225th Street. So with that intro aside, I'll let folks introduce themselves as they present, and I'll pass it over to Dan Wagner to take it over for the first part.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. Yes, my name is Dan Wagner. I am the Director for Project Development and Delivery for the Public Realm team, and I'm here with my colleague Mary, who is actually going to be the project manager for this project, and she's going to give you the presentation, so I'll pass it off to her.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Daly, as Dan said, and I am here to give an update on the project at Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey Avenue. Yeah, thank you for having us back to present these updates. We are very excited to report next steps. Oh, I thought somebody said something, but so yeah, we're very excited to report next steps and discuss this project. I'm going to go through the first few slides pretty quickly, as they are an overview of what we've already presented to you and what you're likely already aware of.
West 31st Street and 6th Avenue. Transfers available to the B, D, F, M, N, Q, R, and W train, NJ path, BXN2, M34SC.
Maybe. I don't know if Diana can unmute or mute. Okay, thank you. So yeah, back to the presentation. So basically, I'm just going to represent some of the pre-project conditions that we already presented, just to make sure we're all on the same page. But you know, you might be already aware of a lot of these things. But these, we've had countless site visits to this area and collected a bunch of data for traffic modeling. And one of the most striking things at this intersection is the over 100 pedestrians that come into conflict with vehicles as they are accessing the park during peak times. As you know, there are several nearby schools, including a new school plan just west of the intersection that will generate additional pedestrian traffic in the future. Additionally, we are talking with the Harlem River Greenway planning team at DOT, who have given us valuable insights from some of their recent workshops that I will be sharing at a later slide. So here's the full plan overview of the project site previous to what we implemented last year. This is just a reference point to get us all on the same page. And then with these photos, you can see the missing sidewalks and crosswalk markings at the major Deacon Expressway ramps. There's frequent pedestrians walking across these unprotected intersections to access the park and bike path just north of here. And additionally, just south, there are long crossing distances in the existing crosswalks at the intersections. So this makes it a very difficult intersection overall to navigate as a pedestrian. Furthermore, the bike paths inside the park the bike trails. They attract many bicyclists, and with vehicles also heading to and from the expressway, it makes for a pretty dangerous condition for vehicles and bicyclists as they navigate to their respective destinations. So in summary, this intersection and expressway ramps lack basic pedestrian infrastructure such as sidewalks and crosswalks. Bicyclists also lack proper delineation from vehicles as they head to and from the bike paths in the park. But despite these conditions, pedestrians and bicyclists still continue to use this park entrance, so we are obligated to accommodate these users in a safer way. Since we previously presented, we also wanted to show some additional research that our unit has done about the surrounding area. So some of the research includes our comprehensive planning analysis, where we've looked at the area to ensure our project fits into both the other projects currently being planned in your neighborhood, as well as making sure it is in line with our larger goals as an agency in the Northwest Bronx. So as you know, our agency goal is to accommodate the safe and efficient and environmentally responsible movement of New Yorkers, which this project aligns with. And we are working especially closely with the other projects related to the Harlem River Greenway as part of this project. So you probably know about the Tibbetts Brook daylighting, which you can see as number 5 on the map. We are working with their team to ensure our project will be completed before they begin construction next year, as well as the Bailey Avenue Safety Project, number 2 on the map. And we have worked closely with their team to ensure our project connects to their project. And you'll be hearing from them following this presentation, as Anthony said at the beginning. Also, as part of the Harlem River Greenway efforts that I mentioned, we've extracted some of the comments related to this particular intersection. And it's just worth noting that many of the participants mentioned improving this park connection to the neighborhood. So as an update from last year, we completed a small portion of our project to lessen the construction impact in 1 year and speed up completion. This included parts of the sidewalk leading in and out of the park in pink, as well as a pedestrian refuge island in pink on Bailey Avenue to help with that long crossing distance for pedestrians here. We hope to continue these updates this year, and we're super happy to report that our conversations with State DOT have been successful, and they approved and agree with our design to realign the expressway ramps as we presented previously. So these designs haven't changed at all, but just as a reminder, I will go through our reasoning for the proposal on the screen here. The 2 off ramps, we will realign them to allow us to implement stop controls for pedestrians and allow them to safely cross. At the north ramp in particular, because of this new T intersection-like geometry, it will allow us to legalize this left turn for vehicles going north on the Major Deegan Expressway, turning left into the park. So we've seen tire tracks on the grass where many vehicles are currently making this illegal movement. And in order to lessen the impact from these unexpected movements, we want to allow this safely and also, just improve the overall health of the vegetation in the area. And on that note, we'll be filling the old ramp areas with compost and grass seed in coordination with Parks and the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance. They're a supporter and partner with us on this project, as this project fulfills part of the goals in the Van Cortlandt Park Master Plan. As for the north ramp, the north on-ramp, we will also modify it slightly just to allow for the shorter, safer marked pedestrian crossing here. And we'll also permit another vehicle movement here for passenger vehicles coming from the park, like going north on the Major Deegan Expressway. So this is just another illegal vehicle movement that we've witnessed that we just want to safely allow. So it just improves predictable it improves vehicle flows and makes them more predictable. So I really do see these changes as a benefit to everyone who uses this space by legalizing these vehicle turns and formalizing pedestrians and hello. Yeah, by legalizing vehicle turns and formalizing pedestrian bicycle access, it will just make it less confusing for everyone and have better visibility and everyone will have a better understanding of where they're supposed to be as they access the park, expressway, and other neighborhood amenities around this area. Moving south, at the intersection of Van Cortlandt and Bailey, our goal is to shorten and clarify pedestrian movements here. We previously presented the slip lane closure slightly differently, and in the last year, we completed the traffic analysis and took into account some of your concerns regarding the right turns from Van Cortlandt Park to Bailey Avenue to maintain the shorter pedestrian crossings while also accommodating the volume of all of these right turns. Based on our traffic model, we have added more additional queue space and a separate lane that will allow for all the necessary vehicles to turn right onto Bailey Avenue from Van Cortlandt Park South. So this will hopefully, allow bus users, pedestrians, bicyclists to have safe access to this intersection, but also allow vehicles to have sufficient space as they navigate from Van Cortlandt Park South to Bailey Avenue. In summary, our project seeks to clarify movements of all modes heading in and out of the park, as well as shorten the crossing distances at the main intersection of Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey Avenue. So here's just the full plan, and we can come back to this full plan for discussion purposes if there's any questions for the overall plan of the project. And then we just wanted to give you a preview of what's happening next and confirm that we are working very closely with the Bailey Avenue Safety Project that you'll hear about next to ensure our projects align. So the traffic model, all the plans, they're fully coordinated and working together to make sure everything's feasible and realistic.
Okay.
And finally, I'll just end on our projected timeline for the project. So we hope to begin construction this spring and be substantially complete by late summer, early fall. So yeah, thanks. And I'll take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Ms. Daly, for your presentation. Does anybody from the committee, Traffic and Transportation Committee, have any questions for Ms. Daly? Yes.
If you could go back a slide to that, one of the off ramps at Van Cortlandt South. Yeah, the semi half moon, that off ramp, I don't know what to call it, but right at Van Cortlandt Park South, where the option is to go left or right, where it says realign off ramps.
Mm-hmm.
That intersection, if you're allowing cars to turn left and right, you're gonna have a lot of accidents there, a lot. There's never a time when those eastbound lanes are not backed up and people make risky decisions just the way that it is right now.
Okay,
It's gonna
so
be a real
yeah.
problem.
I'll just interject and say that this here, we won't be allowing the left turn. I was referring to this ramp where people will be only making the left turn if you're going into Van Cortlandt Park South. But for this, we won't be allowing the left turn. It'll still be right turn only, and we will be implementing rubber speed bumps as well as signage to ensure that vehicles aren't allowed to turn left at this off ramp. Does that make sense?
Beyond signage, is there anything else that, because I think when the previous iteration, it was quite obvious because of the angle. That is almost 90 degrees, and so I think unless I would say even if the signage is obvious, it's the possibility of somebody who's like, oh, I didn't realize, because the break point is much higher off to recognize, and so the idea that you're gonna to say, I'm going to make a left turn, to have that decision made essentially as you're coming off the Major Deegan. If anyone makes a mistake, they're gonna make, if they make an error, no one's gonna loop around. They're going to invariably try to make that risky turn.
Is there gonna be a sign
And
that
yeah.
says no left turn?
There will
Yeah.
be, so we're gonna implement a series of signs. There'll be signs before the split to show people which direction each ramp will be going to. And
Or you
we
came.
will. What was
Sorry,
that?
I'm gonna try to mute as many.
Okay.
people as I
I didn't know if somebody had another question, so, but yeah, we'll have a series of signs. So before the split, we'll have signs that show people which way to go, which way each ramp leads to, as well as signs saying, you know, right turn only. And then we'll also have a physical speed bump on the yellow lane line in the middle, and that will make it very, you know, uncomfortable for drivers to be making this a legal left turn. And we can continue to monitor it and make sure that, you know, users aren't going to be doing it, and try to work with enforcement for it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
additionally, if we do find that drivers are turning left there, we will be available to revise the treatment at that intersection, so that way we can continue to add to it, so that way we are making sure that people cannot turn left there, so that way they're using the ramps as designed.
There's a gentleman, he had his hand up, and Mr. Panak, I believe you had your hand up.
Right. Do you wanna go? Yeah.
Yeah.
You go ahead,
Got
Jen.
it.
I'll
So a
go
couple
ahead.
questions. Thank you for the presentation. While on that off ramp there, and I guess you can deal with both of them, what's the turning radius for a truck? And won't they have an issue trying to make a right turn at either one of those places? Say an 18-wheel semi truck.
So we have the modeling capabilities for all the trucks that are allowed on the expressway, and they are able to make all of these turns. This
Is
turning
that
radius
data?
is quite
Yeah.
wide, and yeah, I
Can you tell us
believe
what that is?
the
The
data
amount
of
of feet
what?
that you have here in order, and the turning radius that an 18-wheeler is gonna need here. As they're pulling off of a stop sign.
Right,
Make
so
their
we
right
don't, like, there isn't an answer to that question, so we have, it's a series of answers. We don't have, we do have the technology, the modeling ability to model how a truck turns right there, but it's not like it's a number like 22 feet or something like that. It's because of the way that the tractor trailer has rear wheels that swing at a different rate than the front wheels, you get multiple answers. But rest assured, this does have the WB40, the WB50, the WB62, and the WB67 can all make the right turns as needed. And those are the largest trucks there are.
Can I also just add?
Will they
Sorry?
block the oncoming traffic as they're doing that in your model?
I didn't hear the question. Can you say repeat that?
Well, are they going to block the oncoming traffic as they're pulling out to do that?
No.
They're not.
And I also wanted to add that, you know, we mentioned that last time we were reviewing this further with the state DOT that runs the highway. And as part of that review, it was to make sure that they also agreed with our analysis, including any impacts to the highway. So we made sure that the new geometry wouldn't like back up trucks on the highway trying to get out. So we reviewed as our own analysis, the state did their own analysis, and we all agreed that the trucks can make that turn and that it won't negatively impact either the highway or the road.
So Commissioner, that's great. Can the community board get a copy of that analysis?
I think
Well,
yes, we can figure out how to send that to you. I mean, it's like taking screenshots of an application. It's a multi-layered analysis. Sure.
That works, screenshots work. And I guess the second question I have, and my bigger concern with this area, is the removal of a slip lane here because of the amount of traffic that goes into that area, which backs up, quite frankly, all the way back to Broadway. Between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. and in the morning as well. And with the large development coming, the school and the new development of, I think, 370 apartments, it's just gonna get worse. So when you remove the slip lane, even with what appears to be about maybe, I'm guessing it's 200 feet of a lane. I can't really tell what's
It's-
there because I don't see any markings.
It's 300 feet.
300 feet, and that's at a stoplight as well, right? So the
Yes.
traffic's gonna be backed up?
Well, that was my question and point as well.
And there's still street
Because
parking
last
there?
time you conceded that we weren't gonna touch that opening, which we were very happy about. You took our comments to consideration, but now you've changed it again to add it back in, remove that turn to alleviate a lot of backup that always is occurring over there. And, I'm also concerned, or not concerned, I did want to ask, because I see you put green on some of these islands. I'm hoping that means you're gonna be still having some greenery on these areas, because I know for the bus stop, it's just cement block. And I know as a committee, they've always been asking to add more green or more pervious, materials to these areas. So will that be taken into consideration at all as well?
Yeah, regarding the green areas, this tree bed here will be expanded into a larger space, especially since that tree is growing very large. It's, you know, we've worked with the Parks Department to realign this tree bed and make it larger for the health of the tree. And then this green streak here, we will be retaining it and just shifting it over slightly to maintain that green space. And then in the previous slide here, you can see we are converting the space of these old ramps into planted space with the Parks Department. So they're going to plant it after we complete the project.
Okay, can I just ask one more time though, why did we change that right turn slip again? Why did you get rid of it and do it this way?
So one of the reasons is that you're mentioning that there's backup when you're
Mhm.
heading, you know, eastbound now. And part of the reason there's backup is you have parked cars against the curb, and then you have the through traffic who has backed up and is blocking the right turn. And that's why the right turn traffic is backed up. So this way we can have a much longer lane, so that way the through traffic that's preventing the right turn traffic from getting to where they want to go, they now have their own dedicated lane. But in addition, we're trying to coordinate the what is coming next, where we have a proposed bike lane on Bailey Avenue to have bikes navigate through this space, and have the bus stop that exists today work with all of that. The best design solution is the one you see here, where you have a closed slip lane, so that way the bicyclists and the bus stop users can all have a space together where there is a coordinated effort, so that way everybody can navigate the space without running into each other. And by closing the slip lane and providing the extra space for the right turns, it should all work together. Our data does include the aforementioned development, that we took their traffic analysis and applied it to our traffic analysis, and we have found that this still works within our modeling.
Okay, but I just want to clarify, the backup was in the left lane, not the right lane. We were saying if you close that lane, it would cause backup, but we weren't saying there was a backup in the right lane.
Mhm.
That's why we didn't want the slip to close. Just to clarify.
My mistake.
Well, that can be your question.
How
Thank you.
many parking spots will be eliminated by this?
This eliminates 5 parking spaces on that south curb. It's the first 300 feet.
That's more than 5 parking spaces.
Oh, right. You're right. If it was currently parking spaces now, it would be 300 feet. But there's a current bus stop, so that takes up a lot of space. And then there's a driveway and there's a fire hydrant. So it takes away 5 legal parking spaces.
So if the bus stop is there, then you're really not gonna have a very long right turn lane if a bus is stopped.
The bus stop is fairly infrequently used. So yes, when there's a bus pulling over, it will be in the right turn bay, but generally speaking, the bus isn't there. So it, it works with all of it should work together.
But I mean, isn't it a violation to be in the bus lane at any time?
No,
I mean,
It's not a
to-
bus lane though, is
it's
it?
just where the bus stops.
Is it
Bus
gonna
stop.
be indicated that only a bus can be in that lane?
So it's not a
Oh.
bus lane, it's a bus stop, and it's also a travel lane. So it's not like you're double parking there. That would be a violation. But if you're waiting for the lights to turn green, you are moving in a travel lane. That's not a violation.
Yeah, we have examples of this condition elsewhere in the Bronx, or I mean citywide too, but also in the Bronx, which we can provide it after the meeting if you'd like.
And let me just add one point, that we mentioned this before. And last year, you acknowledged that the board followed up with the concern about what that new development would mean to the additional vehicular traffic to this area. But at the same time, I raised the point last time, and I want to raise it again this time. If you're expecting a new school and a new residential apartments, that means there's more pedestrians in this area too. And that's really the core of this project, that more children and more families will be crossing this street. We want to make it safer for them. And so by keeping it a slip lane as it is, that allows the unpredictability of speeding vehicles to make that quick turn instead of having to stop, look, and make the turn when it's safer. So this is better for pedestrians, it's better for bus riders, it's better for cyclists. It really is better for everyone, except for the few people that may want to speed and try to get through this intersection as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. I want to try to get to some of the people that are on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
David,
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. The slip lane that's looks like it's effectively becoming a pedestrian island there at that southwest corner. I think that's great for traffic calming and making it much shorter for pedestrians who are crossing Bailey. But it's a very busy area, and you're going to be making vehicles make a 145, 150-degree turn, which is extraordinary in a high traffic area.
When
Ye-
a bus is there, force them into the left lane.
Ms. Daly or Mr. Perez, do you want to respond to that?
I'm not sure what the question is.
If you're going east on Van Cortlandt South and you're
Yeah.
going to make a right onto Bailey, you're now, instead of having the smoothness of the slip lane, which I understand, getting rid of it, but then you're going to be making vehicles make about a 145-degree turn, which is extraordinary.
It's not so sharp that the vehicles can't make the turn. We modeled it's a very generous and rounded corner. So yeah, I mean that is the angle of Bailey Avenue coming into Van
Yes.
Cortlandt Park South. And we modeled that, like we were talking about earlier, a WB-40, which is a big semi truck that can make the turn in this design. So we also know that if a truck can make it, so can any cars and any other users of the intersection.
Okay, but it's gonna be real slow, so I think it'll slow down. All right, my other question is about the entrance, 200 yards north, to get onto the Deegan from this access point. Yes, I've always seen that as, and I'm guilty of it myself, as sort of an acceleration lane to get onto the high-speed Deegan Expressway. And I like the fact that you have a bulb there, but it's going to be, I think, a lot of people accelerating there through that crosswalk. And I'm wondering if maybe you want to make a raised crosswalk there to slow vehicles so that they start their speed on the actual on-ramp.
That's a great suggestion. We'll look into it.
Okay.
I can't
That'll
make any
help.
promises. We haven't done the analysis,
No, I
et
understand.
cetera. But I'm not sure if we're permitted to do that as an entrance to an on-ramp, but if we are, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Let's go to Michelle Cordona.
Gail
Hi.
Jaden was-
Yeah, just one quick note about that, the same exposed slip lane that David was talking about. I walk that on a daily basis, and I feel unsafe as it is currently built. More often than not, I have to stop with my dogs because cars never yield, even though there is a little bit of a sign for them to slow down. So I think the proposal definitely will make things safer for pedestrians that are crossing to go to the park. As for cars turning, that radius that I'm seeing right now, I'm also an architect, so it looks more than enough, and it does slow them down a bit, but they can still easily turn around. I also wanted just to pinpoint that I really like the proposal on that off ramp that's closer to into the park, because often also there I always have to stop because people don't yield even though there are yield signs. In fact, sometimes they are violent toward me and yell at me because I'm crossing and I slow them down. So I give kudos to this plan and think all of those proposals are pretty good for someone who lives here. I also bike too. So when I bike up to the park, it's always a little unsettling to try and get into Van Cortlandt Park because of the shared path when you're biking up there. So I like that. It looks like there's a bike lane now that's being added, which will make it safer to get into the park.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle, for your feedback. Gail, you're next.
Hi, thank you. I also want to thank you all for this presentation as a pedestrian, and a cyclist. I often feel unsafe crossing this in this like little four corner area. Occasionally I have to go into the park this way because my normal route is blocked by snow or sometimes deep water. And it is terrifying. So I'm really excited about this bike lane. The one question I have is when the car, I'm a little bit unclear on one thing. When cars exit the Deegan, and going, they're driving north and they're exiting in order to turn left onto Van Cortlandt South. So let's say I, as a pedestrian, am standing on the northeast corner of that intersection, and I'm trying to cross, right, and I'm trying to cross over Van Cortlandt Park south to get to, right, correct, there you go, and then I'm gonna cross Bailey to get to that other to get like right, exactly. So when I'm trying to make that first cross across Van Cortlandt Park South, the cars that are exiting and making a left, there doesn't, I mean, I don't think that there's a time when I have the green light and the cars don't have a green light, so that they're turning left in front of me. It's not safe, and there doesn't seem to be a time when, as a pedestrian, like there's a light that's just for me to cross over that intersection. The cars are coming off the Deegan, they're making a left, they're going pretty fast. So I'm just wondering, if is there any way to change that traffic light so that, at some point, the pedestrians that are crossing over Van Cortlandt Park South are the only ones with a green light, so they can feel safe, like they're safely crossing.
Yeah, that I understand what you're saying, and we can always add something like that into the signal, but at the cost of delaying everything else. So we've rejiggered the signal in this proposal that we didn't get into the details, but we're going to slightly rejigger the signal timing so that way it should feel a little bit safer, but it won't be able, we aren't able to do a full pedestrian phase where you're crossing all the legs here. It would cause like everybody else was mentioning, it would cause a lot of delay and a lot of backup into through this intersection.
I'll just add a little context to Dan's answer there too. We are referring to something that we call the leading pedestrian interval. So we can implement that as a tool at most intersections where there's a traffic signal already. And basically what that looks like is the pedestrians get a 10-second head start before the other cars get the green light. So that's something that we could look into implementing here. But like Dan mentioned, if we give a 10-second head start to everyone standing on each corner, that's an extra 40 seconds that everyone else has to wait too. So we have to play that out and do the math to figure out if these guys are going this way and these guys are crossing here, how much longer does everyone else have to wait? So we have to like balance all the stakeholders. So we can take a look at what else to include and how that impacts the other directional phases and the other sides of the intersection.
That would be great, especially considering what we've heard about the new school with lots of children in that area now. Thanks.
Thank you, Gail. Robert, you're next. Panuzzi? Can you unmute him? Oh,
I asked to unmute, I thought.
all right. Is there anybody else in the public has their hand up and ready?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Thank you all. I'm here as an individual, but I'm also just to tell everyone I'm a board member of DCEQ, which was a partner in developing some of these plans. And I just wanted to ask you about signage. Since this is going to be running, it is part of the, it will be essentially parallel to the Putnam Greenway at this point, and from the park south. And I wanted to know if DOT has started to think about the semantics of identifying this as a Harlem River Greenway at this juncture with wayfinding signage, etc.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Okay. Yeah, you can add anything if I missed it, but we will have signage that points people to the greenway in the park, the bike path in the park. That was one piece of feedback that we heard from a few community members at the greenway workshops, is that like the bike path in the park is a little bit hard to find when you enter the park and go under the bridge. So we'll be implementing periodic signage as you go into the park.
Well, at that point, it is the Putnam Greenway. So I guess what I'm asking is about how you are going to differentiate the right-of-way Greenway, which is the Harlem River Greenway, what we're seeing here, and the Putnam Greenway, which is very closely related, as I'm sure you know.
Right. I can double check. We worked with our another unit to decide what to put on the Greenway medallions.
Right. Good question. And yeah, thank you. And also anything with Empire State Trail, where you have 3 designations then within the park. You could possibly be having 3: Empire State Trail, Harlem Greenway, and Putnam Greenway. So just to ask you to clarify that, because we do hope that this is continuous and actually becomes part of, leads us to the Putnam Greenway, wherever that will be, even south of 230th Street. But the signage can get very confusing for folks, and understanding the Harlem River Greenway and its relationship to the Putnam Greenway would be really something that information could help clarify, as well as like nice connections to them at some point, which I'm sure you have. Anyway, that's my point, and that's my comment right now, just that very basic thing about identifying the right-of-way.
Great, thank you. I will just say that yes, that's all stuff we can absolutely look into, and adding the appropriate sign. The whole point of this project, well, one of many points of this project, is to create a connection. And as you're pointing out, there's a lot of things to the north here that we're connecting to. So we would be remiss if we did not include the actual information about said connection that we went to lengths to build. So we will look into that. The good news is that once we're done with construction, we can continue to work on that, as signage is a much lighter lift.
Sure, thanks.
Chauncey, and then we're taking one more, and then
I'm gonna move on.
we're gonna move on to our agenda.
Of course. Thank you so much. Evening all, Chauncey. I use this intersection as a bicyclist, as a pedestrian, and as a motorist, multiple times a week. I really applaud DOT with this change in the on-ramp, off-ramp. I think it really improves the safety, and especially for folks that don't utilize this ramp as much. There's sometimes confusion about the way that it was currently set up. So as David shared, I think if there is a possibility of putting raised crosswalks as a pedestrian, it is frequently feels a little dangerous, and was also shared by Gail, that, as you're walking across that intersection, people do not like to slow down. But the overall plan, it feels like it's going to be much safer for all road users, whether pedestrian, bicycle, or motorists, and really applaud the work that's going into this, and hope to see this come to fruition. And as Rob shared, I think if we can really think about the signage just for, it's going to be a lot of new things, and understanding where you're supposed to go. Signage is so important for all road users. Thank you so much.
Ira?
Hi,
Next.
my name is Ira Gershenhorn, and I support David's idea for the raised crosswalks. I would just call them continuous sidewalks, because you'll get people with strollers using them more often. Thank you.
Gonzalez, Gonzalez, and that's it.
He's gone.
He's gone?
Okay.
Gonzalez?
This is
Yeah.
like
Okay.
so beautiful. If you know what I mean.
All right, thank you, DOT, for your presentation, and thank you for the community giving us feedback and giving them feedback to make our area, Community Board 8, a safe place in terms of walking and driving, and we will move on our agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks to Dan and Mary. As I mentioned, this is a 2-game day here. So we have another DOT unit that's here going to kind of seamlessly continue this project past that project line that you just saw on the last slide. So we are joined by our RIS team. The team makes fun of me because I keep saying IRS. I guess it's because it's tax season. But I'll pass it over to Chris Brunson, Nathan Albert, and Ben Schwade.
Hi all, thanks for having us. My name is Chris Brunson. I'm the Director from Research, Implementation, and Safety. So our team focuses on primarily Vision Zero projects. So we target corridors that have a high history, a rate of crashes, specifically injuries, and specifically pedestrian injuries. In recent years, CB8 and other community members asked for safety improvements on Bailey Ave. And after we received their request, we reviewed the crashes on the corridor and found that the requests for safety were indeed warranted. In the last 5-year period, there were 179 crashes. 20 of these were what we called killed or severely injured crashes, or KSI crashes. Those are the most severe crashes that we see in our crash reports. And then because of that high number of killed and severely injured crashes, this is one of the top 10% most dangerous corridors in the Bronx based on crash severity, injury severity. As we dug deeper into the crashes, we noticed a high number of pedestrians getting hit in failure to yield crashes, where pedestrians have the walk signal and motorists are hitting them while they're in the crosswalk. And we've also seen from motorists, we saw a lot of rear end crashes as well as right angle crashes. So taken together, we noticed that there was a lot of unsafe behavior on the corridor. And so we're looking to do, tonight we're going to be giving you all a proposal that calms traffic with better organization and adds other elements that increase safety, visibility, reduces conflict, and expands mobility options in the name of safety. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nathan Albert, the project manager on this project, and After we give the presentation, we'll take your questions. Thank you very much.
I will need the ability to share my screen for this.
You're all set.
I've received it. Thank you so much. Okay. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks, Chris, for the introduction. My name is Nathan Albert. I am a project manager on Chris's team at Research Implementation and Safety. And like Chris said, we're looking at Bailey Avenue. The scope would be from Van Cortlandt Park South, where we've just discussed, south to West 225th Street. So this is 1.1 miles that connects the neighborhoods of Kingsbridge Heights, Kingsbridge, and the park to the north. It's directly adjacent to the major Deegan Expressway. In some cases, it's directly on top of it. In some cases, there's some buildings or parks in between them in a thin strip. And it's also 1 block away from Broadway. Some places it's a quick walk. Some places it's a little bit longer of a walk to get over the highway. But it also, Broadway, as we know, has the 1 train and a lot heavier commercial activity just 1 block away. Along Bailey Avenue, it's a mix, depends on where you are on Bailey. In some places it's residential with tall apartment buildings or row houses. There are a few patches of commercial activity, particularly around West 238th Street. And then there's also some light industrial uses like auto body shops. And then some parks, particularly between West 233rd and 234th Street. You can see Bailey Playground and Cooney Grower Field. The BX10 bus also utilizes this route and makes several stops north of West 230th Street. And there's also a single block where the BX1 doesn't actually stop, but it uses Bailey to zigzag through the neighborhood. And the entire stretch of Bailey Ave is a local truck route as well. So as Chris mentioned, we first started looking at this corridor due to community requests. CB8 in their district needs statement asked for a reconstruction and a redesign for safety of Bailey Ave and West 230th Street. We've also received a number of constituent complaints. You can see screenshots of a couple regarding speeding and safety for pedestrians and cyclists along the corridor. And like Chris said, the data bears this out. What you can see on the right is a map of Bailey Avenue from Van Cortlandt Park south to West 225th Street. The yellow dots represent total injuries at those locations. The orange dots represent those KSI injuries, severe injuries and fatalities, which we're looking at very closely in research implementation and safety to prioritize locations to focus our resources. And in red, you can see fatalities. So in the past 5 years, there's been 179 people who've been injured on this portion of Bailey, but there have been 18 severe injuries and 2 fatalities. There was one at West 229th Street in 2021 and one at West 225th Street in 2022. Actually, when we first started looking at this project, and we went before 2020, there were a number of other fatalities, but they've sort of timed out in this 5-year window. And the locations where there are the highest number of injuries are kind of the ones you'd expect. They're the busy intersections: West 225th Street, West 230th Street, West 238th Street. That's where we see some of the worst numbers on the corridor. Diving a little deeper into the data, sorry, there's a firehouse right next to me, so just pause so you don't hear that. So diving a little deeper into the data, the most common pedestrian injuries were caused by drivers failing to yield to pedestrians. So these pedestrians were crossing with the light. They were crossing in a legally marked crosswalk with the light, doing the right thing, and they were hit by a vehicle that failed to yield. These are types of crashes that we see when drivers take turns at high speeds and without paying attention, and particularly with wide areas and no real visual narrowing of these intersections. The most common driver injuries, over a third, were caused by rear end and right angle crashes, which indicate high rates of speeding and aggressive driving. And like Chris said, this rate of severe injuries puts it at the top 10% of the most dangerous streets in the Bronx. So going into the existing geometry of Bailey Avenue, every intersection is different, and we'll go intersection by intersection a little bit later in this presentation. But in general, we see 60-foot cross section with 2 moving lanes in either direction and parking along the curb. There are several very long blocks of Bailey Avenue here. We call this is caused by something we call an edge condition. So just along the west curb, we have parks, we have the highway, and not as many intersections breaking up Bailey Avenue. So we see long blocks that encourage speeding and a lot of reckless driving along this corridor, both that we've observed in our field visits and also just in complaints that we've received from constituents. And like I said earlier, these 60-foot cross sections, which sometimes get wider in some cases, create very long crossing distances for pedestrians. And moreover, there's just no dedicated space for cyclists along this corridor whatsoever. Getting a little bit deeper into the existing conditions by mode. So for drivers, there's excess capacity. These 2 travel lanes result in speeding, double parking, swerving, and unpredictable behavior. And the speeding, particularly on these long blocks, leads to high rates of rear end and right angle crashes and injuries, particularly in the mid blocks that the data that we get from the NYPD will sometimes classify the crashes in the mid blocks. They're not happening at the intersection. They're just happening on straightaways. And we see a high number of these speeding related crashes just in the mid blocks because of speeding and reckless driving. Moreover, at every intersection, there are no turn bays. There's 2 lanes of traffic, but they're not really marked. So if you are a vehicle that's looking to go straight, but you're in the left lane, and someone in front of you is trying to make a left turn and waiting for an opening, that vehicle that's waiting for the left turn gets pressure on them to make the turn faster, maybe do something reckless or sudden, creates more opportunities for conflict and crashes. And then if you're in the vehicle that you want to continue through the intersection, you might swerve around that vehicle, which creates further opportunities for crashes. So there's no turn bays at any of these intersections, and we see that creates real problems for both left turning vehicles and the through moving vehicles. And earlier, I'm going to say this a few more times in this presentation, wide roadway and intersections encourage fast turns onto Bailey Avenue, particularly in pedestrian areas. So for pedestrians, there are long crossing distances everywhere. Particularly in the areas that are 1 block away from the 1 train on Broadway. So that's West 238th Street, West 231st Street, and West 225th Street. We see very high numbers of pedestrians, both going to and from the train. And then they come to Bailey and cross 60-foot, sometimes longer distances without any protection from vehicles that, as we said before, are driving quite fast. In a number of these locations, the intersections are misaligned as well. They're not really happening at right angles. So cars are making turns that are sort of like highway-like. They're just sort of shallow turns instead of being able to make the full slow 90-degree turn that we see better safety benefits from. And like I said earlier, just going to say it again, vehicles fail to yield to pedestrians all across this corridor and cause almost half of the injuries to pedestrians on the corridor. One final thing I'll mention, and you can see this in the image on the bottom right. So there are a few locations. West 230th Street is one of them where there are missing north-south crossings for pedestrians that are trying to walk along Bailey Avenue to continue north or south. You see this at West 230th Street and also at Bailey Place. But we see in both of those locations pedestrians continuing to cross as if there is a crosswalk. But this image of a pedestrian crossing here, that person is doing it at their own risk. There's no light. They have no protection from vehicles, but they're still doing it anyway. Finally, for cyclists, despite there being no dedicated space for bicycles on Bailey Avenue, we see almost 150 cyclists use this stretch per day. We can infer that they're taking this to Van Cortlandt Park, but also to Broadway Bridge to get into Manhattan, and other destinations in the neighborhood, the commercial areas, 1 block to the west along Broadway. But the lack of dedicated space along Bailey Avenue leads to cyclists sharing travel lanes with fast-moving buses, trucks, and personal vehicles. And because of the double parking all along the corridor, we see cyclists swerving into the left lane of traffic sometimes to get around them. This is just an unacceptable and unsafe situation. In addition, there are no bike lanes in these neighborhoods. So you can see on the right this circle drawn around the area of Bailey Avenue, and there are no current safe cyclist connections both to the park, to Manhattan, to local destinations all along the corridor. There's no safe place for a cyclist to go. So here's our proposal. On the top right, you can see the existing cross-section at 60 feet. We're proposing removing a travel lane in either direction, which will narrow the area of the street through which vehicles can drive, and calm traffic. In that space, we're going to be creating a wide painted flush median that's generally about 9 feet wide in the center of the street. And on the west curb, we're going to be adding a parking protected 2-way bike path along the west curb of Bailey Avenue. I want to note that in the approach to every intersection, we're going to be including a turn bay. So this will maintain the current capacity of 2 lanes approaching every intersection, but it'll organize the traffic into a left turn and a straight turn bay, or a straight and a right turn bay. And that's demonstrated on the bottom right of this slide. We're also at all feasible locations along the corridor going to be implementing pedestrian islands to shorten crossing distances. And these islands also will encourage slower and safer turns for vehicles to reduce those types of failure to yield conditions that we have been discussing all throughout this presentation. Furthermore, in the locations where this is viable, it's particularly for southbound BX10 buses along this route. We're going to be either building new or expanding existing bus boarding islands to improve rider accessibility, make it easier for the bus to access the curb for riders with disabilities, and also make it so buses can have their passengers board and alight much more quickly than they currently do. So one more note about this design. So Chris earlier mentioned this idea of KSI, killed and severely injured. This is something that at DOT, when we're looking at data and we're looking at where to allocate our resources, we're really looking at this KSI number. And the design that I shared is something that DOT has been doing for 10, 15 years now. So we have a really good base of data that we can look at and see the types of safety benefits that these types of projects are associated with. And what we see is these protected bike lanes improve safety outcomes for all road users, drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists alike. But the most significant safety improvements are associated with senior pedestrians. So we've seen 39% reductions in KSI crashes, killed and severely injured crashes, for senior pedestrians when we implement these types of protected bike lanes. So I just wanted to call out the real broad safety benefits of this project as we continue through the presentation. I'm going to go through each intersection starting from the north and finishing at West 225th Street. And then close out the presentation, and then we can take questions. But I'll just sort of mention we've also this presentation is something that will eventually be posted on our website. We have talked about this one location at length because of Mary and Dan's prior presentation, so I'm not going to get into too much detail here. None of this is new, but this is meant to sort of focus on what's happening south of Van Cortlandt Park South. One thing I just want to note that actually isn't called out in any of these boxes here, but it's something that I was thinking about as we were discussing the proposal is traffic flow at this location. It's a concern that was raised by the community last year. And it's a concern that we've been considering as we iron out this design. Just want to note that because of the geometry at this intersection, we're maintaining on Bailey Avenue, south of the intersection, 2 lanes in either direction. So this is designed to keep traffic flowing. And we're also, for the right turning vehicles coming north on Bailey Avenue to turn right onto what eventually is called Van Cortlandt Avenue West, because east of this intersection is called Van Cortlandt Avenue West. We're going to be converting that right turn to a stop sign from the current signal, so it'll help process the vehicles out of this intersection a bit more efficiently. As was mentioned earlier, we'll be adding this new right turn bay on the approach on Van Cortlandt Park South, heading east to turn right onto Bailey Ave. And be closing the slip lane to build out this new expanded pedestrian and cyclist shared space to have the cyclists and pedestrians more safely cross into the park. Cyclists will then be able to use this large space to come down onto a new protected bike lane on the west curb south of the intersection. The existing BX10 bus that's southbound will be also, the bus stop will be also moved onto this large concrete curb extension, but there will be adequate passing distance for the cyclists and pedestrians to keep them away from the bus riders that are using this bus stop. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue one block south now. So this is West 238th Street, and the big intervention that we're proposing here is the bus boarding island on the northwest corner. So that will improve the BX10 southbound BX10 accessibility, bus service, and it'll also remove conflict between buses and bus riders and the cyclists that are using the west curb bike lane. This island will also have a calming impact for pedestrians that are, for vehicles that are making the right turn onto westbound 238th Street. And it'll also reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians that are crossing in this north leg of the intersection of Bailey, that they're crossing Bailey Avenue. And generally just reducing the exposure that pedestrians have to vehicles. I also want to call out the turn bays at this intersection. Southbound, there will be a new left turn bay that organizes the left turns to 238th Street, gets them out of the way of through traffic, and allows them to make a more patient and safe turn. And then for northbound Bailey Avenue, we're proposing both a left turn bay and a new protected left turn signal that allows the left turning vehicles to make this turn onto West 238th Street without any conflict with any oncoming vehicles, pedestrians, or cyclists. So this will have a great impact on safety for these left turn bays will have an impact on safety for all users, but it'll make for a much more predictable and organized experience for drivers at this intersection. And we know, as I said earlier, this is one of the busiest intersections, both in terms of crashes and pedestrian numbers on the entire corridor. So moving down to 233rd, 234th Street. So I'm going to move from north to south, which is starting at the right of the screen and moving left. So I'll start with this slip lane. I mentioned earlier that there are these sort of gaps in what would be a sort of consistent crossing area for pedestrians that want to walk north or south along Bailey Avenue. And there are two concrete islands at the intersection of West 234th Street, West 234th Street, Bailey Avenue, and Bailey Place. There's currently no legal movement for vehicles to be moving through the slip lane at all, because if a vehicle wants to move north on Bailey Place, they're going to be making the right turn 1 block south on West 233rd Street to merge onto Bailey Place, or to exit Bailey Avenue in a sense. They're not going to be doing it. It's currently not legal at 234th Street anyway. So we're going to be closing this slip lane in concrete so that pedestrians can continue north or south on Bailey Avenue without having to really deal with any conflict or even any traffic signals. It's just going to be a new sidewalk. On the west side of the intersection, we're proposing 2 new pedestrian islands. A smaller one on the northwest corner and a much larger one on the southwest corner. These islands will calm turns, reduce conflicts with vehicles for pedestrians, and also protect the cyclists that are using the new 2-way bike path on the west curb. This southwestern concrete island, which is larger, is also designed to slow the turns for southbound vehicles that are heading onto this slip lane across from the park, and that they would continue south onto Albany Crescent. Currently, it's just a wide open space with a lot of double parking, and when there's no double parking, a lot of speeding. And this larger island is going to be built so that cars will have to make a much slower and deliberate turn here to yield to the cyclists and pedestrians that are going to be moving across it. Moving to the south, cyclists are going to be entering this large and expanded bus boarding island. So this dotted red line is the outline of the existing bus boarding island at this location. It's currently in very bad condition. It does not meet ADA accessibility standards currently. So we are expanding it by a lot. We're basically doubling the size to this outline shown here. And this is going to do a lot of things. It's going to improve the accessibility and experience of BX10 bus riders and of the bus just being able to. Sorry. Okay, we're muted. Cool. Oh. So it's going to improve the experience of bus riders on the BX10. It's also going to reduce pedestrian crossing distances in every direction, or in at least 2 directions. So for pedestrians that are continuing south to cross West 233rd Street on the west side of Bailey Avenue, that crossing is going to be much shorter. And then also for pedestrians that are crossing this north leg of Bailey Ave and West 233rd Street, that crossing is also much shorter. Often these crossings are going to be reduced up to 1/3 of the distance all along this corridor. And these types of extensions will be the cause of this. I also want to call out this new painted curb extension on the south side. So this crossing across West 233rd Street is substantially shorter than it currently is. And that will remove a lot of the potential conflict for pedestrians and vehicles here. It'll also calm the turns that are coming east on West 233rd Street to go the right turns that are going south on Bailey Avenue. This painted curb extension will force them to take this turn at a slower speed so that they yield to the pedestrians in the south leg of the intersection. Lastly, I just want to call out for northbound vehicles approaching West 234th Street, we are going to be proposing a new left turn bay and a new protected turn signal so that vehicles that are making the left onto West 234th Street are doing so without any conflicts with oncoming vehicles, pedestrians, or cyclists. One intersection to the south is West 231st Street. So here we're proposing a new painted pedestrian island on the northwest corner of this intersection. This island will calm vehicle turns, reduce pedestrian crossing distance, and protect cyclists that are using this west curb. I also want to mention that for northbound vehicles at this location that are trying to make a left onto West 231st Street, we're proposing a new northbound left turn bay and a new left turn protected signal that will reduce those conflicts with oncoming vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. I also want to mention a design here which is replicated throughout the proposal, which is that all driveways that are currently on the west curb will still have their access maintained with treatments that look similar to this, that allows them to get out and make the turn safely with visibility. Okay, moving down to the big one, West 230th and Albany Crescent. There's a lot going on here, so I'm going to show this in two separate slides. The biggest intervention that we're proposing here is this new crossing across the west leg of Bailey Avenue and West 230th Street. This area is where there was earlier in the presentation an image of a pedestrian crossing without any crosswalk. It's really one of the most challenging locations on this entire corridor because blocked by this blue box is the off-ramp of the major Deegan Expressway. There's also the on-ramp just north of the intersection, as well as Bailey Ave, West 230th. There's a firehouse. This is a crazy intersection. It's unsafe for all users. So we're proposing a new crossing for pedestrians here that's done in two parts. And the reason why it's being done in two parts is to eliminate all conflict. So a pedestrian crossing this north leg, a pedestrian or a cyclist crossing this north leg, I should say, will be able to do so without any turning movement conflict from a vehicle. There's no yield here. It's just you have the protected crossing here. They would then move to this new concrete pedestrian island that we are installing in the center of the intersection, move to the other side of it, and then make another completely protected crossing upon which they can continue on their way north or south, either pedestrians or cyclists. We'll also be installing pedestrian fencing at both sides of this intersection to enforce that both pedestrians and cyclists make this crossing in the manner in which it's marked with signals and markings on the sidewalk. So they're doing so in a safe manner that's predictable to all users. Another thing that this concrete island does is it slows vehicles that are coming off the major Deegan as they're coming into a local street, a local neighborhood street where pedestrians are walking. So currently, if you are a vehicle coming off the major Deegan north and you want to continue north onto Bailey Avenue, you are supposed to in the current condition, you're supposed to basically make this this zigzag turn, right? You make a right and then you make a left. And in the green signal, you're basically able to do it in the same signal cycle. But what we often are seeing here is a diagonal movement. So we see vehicles are just zooming across this intersection, a highway-like movement onto a local street. And this concrete island will enforce a two-part turn that forces vehicles to yield to the pedestrians in the north leg, which there's currently a very, very dangerous conflict between vehicles and pedestrians. So I wanted to call that out because that diagonal movement is one of the most dangerous movements that we see from vehicles currently along the entire corridor, and we needed a design intervention to calm that movement. I also want to mention this very large concrete curb extension on the southwest corner. This is to accommodate the cyclists that are going to continue south on the west curb bike path, but it's also to dramatically calm the turns that are being made eastbound on West 230th Street. Just like the zigzag motion that's done in a kind of fast highway-like manner, we see the eastbound vehicles on 230th Street who want to go south on Bailey Avenue. They're making this turn. It's downhill. Like, this image doesn't really show the topography of it all, but that's a downhill right turn that's very shallow. And we see it done at very high speeds. And those vehicles that are making those right turns are supposed to be yielding to the pedestrians that are in this south leg of the intersection. And, you know, you kind of put 2 and 2 together, and you can see why we have these failure to yield crashes that are so high. The curb extension will also dramatically reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians on the south leg by, again, about 1/3, keeping them out of conflict, period, in addition to forcing a yield for pedestrians. And then I also want to mention on the north curb, we're proposing another concrete curb extension that would allow the cyclists that are using this west curb bike path to get up onto the sidewalk, which will briefly become a shared space. But because it will be a shared space for both cyclists and pedestrians, we are going to expand it quite substantially into this grassy area that's currently managed by the Parks Department. So there's adequate passing distance between for cyclists and pedestrians, just on this short stretch to get them into this crossing here at West 230th Street. A few other things about these two intersections. We are proposing a number of turn bays here. This northbound left turn, which is very heavily used, we're adding a left turn bay here. There's currently no left turn bay here, believe it or not. And so we're going to be adding a left turn bay here. We're also adding a northbound left turn bay and turn signal at Albany Crescent, and a southbound left turn bay for Bailey Avenue going east onto Albany Crescent as well. We're proposing a small painted curb extension here, which combined with the concrete curb extension on the west side will substantially reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians that are going across this north side of Bailey Avenue and West 230th Street by about 1/3. For southbound vehicles on Bailey Avenue that are approaching West 230th Street, we are proposing banning this left turn. It's a very lightly used left turn for southbound going into this onto this one single block of West 230th Street, but vehicles will be able to make this turn more safely 1 block north on Albany Crescent if they're interested in accessing Heath Avenue. So there shouldn't be real adverse impacts on traffic or access to the neighborhood. And then finally, you may see these red dotted lines throughout these renderings that we're showing. That's quick curb. You've probably seen it around the city. It's like hardened, like heavy duty plastic bollards that are not meant to be driven over, and will protect the cyclists in locations where we can't protect them with parked cars. Finally, one very long block south, we have West 225th Street, which is the southern edge of the proposed scope of this project. We actually are proposing 2 new turn bays here, a right turn bay and a left turn bay for southbound vehicles. This is again to promote the safe and organized traffic flow, as we've been doing this all with traffic analysis to ensure that that the road maintains safe traffic flows, even though we're reducing the lanes in the mid blocks all along the corridor. We're also along the bridge of West 225th over the highway, proposing 2 very large painted curb extensions and a painted median tip to dramatically reduce pedestrian crossing distance and to calm the turns that are making them into
Yeah, you're back. Okay, It was a glitch for a minute.
I think Nathan may have frozen.
But I will mention that potentially implementing this proposal to the south of West 225th Street, although I believe that's outside of your community board.
Yeah.
But that will be for future implementation in future years. We evaluated the parking impacts of this proposal all along the 1.1 mile corridor and have determined that approximately 46 spots over the extent of the 1.1 mile corridor will be repurposed. I want to call out some of the causes of this. First, turn calming treatments that improve visibility and encourage slower turns. And these address the left turn and right angle crashes that are plaguing this corridor. You can see an example of this on the top right on Crescent Street in Queens, where an area that would have been used for car parking has quick curb, which is what I mentioned earlier, has quick curb in it to do what we call daylighting the intersection and calming those turns onto the next street. We also are adding new pedestrian islands and new curb extensions at every intersection, and these create shorter and safer crossing distances for pedestrians. They look something like what you see on in the image on the bottom right, Columbus Ave and West 70th Street. But this is again in areas that would otherwise have car parking. But in order to create this pedestrian safety intervention, we need to remove a couple of spots at the intersection. And then finally, we are focused on safe traffic flow throughout the corridor, as well as these safer vehicle turns because there are no turn bays currently. And in order to make space for that, in certain locations, we have to remove some parking spaces and replace them with turn bays. One final note about the connectivity throughout the neighborhood. So earlier I showed a bike map slide that had no bike lanes in the neighborhood. So you can see in green, this is the proposed Bailey Avenue project that we just presented. To the north, the orange arrow is the presentation that was given earlier that will connect Van Cortlandt Park South to the Greenway network within Van Cortlandt Park. I also want to mention that there is an ongoing project being done in collaboration with the Parks Department and DEP to build out a greenway on the west side of the major Deegan. This is a very long-term project. Currently, the estimated completion date is 2030, but I just wanted to call that out as something that's in the pipeline. But I also want to mention, I said earlier that we're considering future corridor connections south of West 225th, and DOT is also exploring a connection to the Broadway Bridge along West 225th to the west of Bailey Avenue. But these are future our future proposals or future ideas that we're still studying. And I want to call one last thing out, which is the Harlem River Greenway. You may be very well aware that over the past few years, DOT has held over 30 public workshops and community events to collect feedback on a proposed Harlem River Greenway, which would connect Van Cortlandt Park to Randall's Island with a continuous and connected path. You can see the map to the right in purple shows the opportunities for this greenway on DOT right of way on our streets, right? So this is stuff that we can, these are parts of the corridor that we can implement with in-house materials. We can do it quickly. And Bailey Avenue is the northernmost phase of this that's on street on DOT property of the Harlem River Greenway. In orange, you can see some of these longer term capital projects. Some of them are still conceptual even, but these would be done over a much longer term. But the purple ones, these are done on street with DOT resources. And Bailey Avenue will be the northernmost leg of this route. And alongside this, the Harlem River Greenway process was a lot of community outreach and also discussion about Bailey Avenue. And I just want to highlight what we heard. In addition to Bailey Avenue's opportunity as part of the Greenway for commuters and for recreation, to connect people to Van Cortlandt Park, participants in these workshops were also
I think it's just Nathan who's glitching.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so you know, Nathan, we can't hear you right now.
Yeah, Chris.
The lane reduction on Bailey Avenue organizes the roadway. It calms traffic, and there are the new turn bays and turn signals at everywhere possible will promote predictable and safer vehicle behavior. We're proposing substantial pedestrian safety improvements at every intersection, which will reduce conflict points with drivers, increase visibility, and shorten crossing distances where possible. We are proposing a protected bike lane in both directions that adds up to 2.2 new miles of protected bike lane mileage through Kingsbridge and Kingsbridge Heights, which will provide safe connections to the park and other neighborhood destinations. And for the BX10, we are proposing bus service and rider accessibility improvements. And you can see to the right is Garrettson Avenue in South Brooklyn. That is a sort of a similar design to what we're proposing here, so you can see it in action. But that's it for me. Thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions along with my colleagues, Chris Brunson and Ben Schwade, as well as the Bronx Borough Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. We're going to start with committee members first, and then we'll go to the public. Margaret?
Sure.
Thanks. Just like the previous presentation, I'm someone, I've walked every corner of your presentation. I biked every street. I've driven down every street. So like, I appreciate that you've really taken the time and you got the essence of that entire corridor, I have to say. I do have some concerns and just some feedback for you that I wanted to share. I know it's getting late, so I'll just share them really quickly. At 238 and Bailey, I mean, personally, I'd like to see that more like the 225th intersection, because the way it's projected now, all the cars will remain behind the bus southbound the entire way. There's no way for a car to get around a bus for the entire stretch, right? And then at 234th, there's so much concrete there. And one of sort of an context for that is that one of the biggest pain points for us as a community is the Bailey Playground, which is immediately adjacent. That is a playground that's all concrete. So like you have concrete upon concrete. I would just ask for a more creative solution. I've walked those intersections. I know that they're lengthy to get across. And I do think it'll improve not only people recognizing like just the lay of that of Bailey. You're like on a straightaway and then you go up a hill. It's kind of like hard for people to even notice that there are intersections. So I think the way you've laid it out, people will be more conscientious and anticipate that they have to make some kind of action as they're approaching an intersection. So I think those things are good. But the concrete there is enormous. And I don't know that that intersection is as highly trafficked as in warranting paving that entire area. And then the last point is at 230th, those lights where you have, part of the zigzag left turn, coming off of the Deegan northbound, and then you're zigzagging to go northbound onto Bailey. Part of the reason why people are so erratic, and I've never been that person. But part of it is that you can't fit in that intersection, you know, like you have to try to chance the light to get through. So the way I see it proposed, it's the exact same situation. So you're still like immediately turning right, and then what? Like all the cars behind you can't turn right either. Everyone's gonna be stuck there and then making erratic decisions, trying to just get through that light so that they're not blocking the entire intersection. So those are my points for feedback, but thank you very much.
Wayne?
Yeah. So I think certainly dovetailing on I think some of the points before, I think that's just a massive concrete jungle. And one of my concerns is, have you made appropriate provisions for drainage? Because I think one of the things that was brought up even in the previous term was, you know, we are at risk and prone to flooding. And the more concrete you have, the worse you're gonna make it. Secondly is how is that gonna impact snow removal when you've got that kind of a maze? Because I can imagine it looks wonderful now. You get one good snowfall and now it's just a giant mess and no one's gonna know where to park or move. I think bringing up the same point about the Major Deegan, I feel like the problem is the placement of the Deegan in the first place, because I mean, I think we're all guilty of this to some extent, because I'm shocked that my car's still intact, just trying to get onto the Deegan sometimes. And you have these again, it's a very odd location. I think part of the problem is, I think we can do all these signage and solutions as much as we want, but at the end of the day, until we actually take a hard look at how the Deegan interacts with that intersection, we're never gonna fix it.
I just want to
Yeah.
add one, and losing 46 spots is a
Yeah.
lot of parking spots.
Yeah, it's
a lot.
devastating.
It's
For-
a lot.
for
And it's gonna,
extended concrete bus lanes, you
it's
know?
gonna be a real hardship for a lot of people in our community losing 46 spots.
To add all this concrete is just, it's insult to injury.
Yes.
So if I can just respond to the gentleman's question about drainage and snow removal. All of these concrete elements that you're mentioning we design them with drainage in mind. We're doing this work around the drainage of the street, so we're not going to alter the drainage situations on the street. But I also want to mention at 233rd, 234th Street, we will, where possible, along the new pedestrian islands, add tree pits. So when we have the opportunity to build large pedestrian spaces, where possible, we do add tree pits, which helps with drainage, shade, beautification, calming the corridor, etc. And snow removal, we're designing. All this is done in. We actually just had a meeting with the sanitation department, so we share our designs with them and vet them with them as well. So there are no concerns raised by them about these designs.
Sarah?
Yeah, well, that giant concrete, you're gonna close off that street, I think around 234th on the east side. Why can't that be a green pedestrian plaza? Beautify it. Why does it have to be just this solid mass of sidewalk? That's a great example of adding to the neighborhood. It's an environmentally justice area. It would be such a beautiful thing to not just do things on the west side of the street, but bring it over to the east side. Make something out of that, you know, not just bring, like, I know you're saying, you can add tree pits to things, but you could really make something of that. All this concrete it's unsettling. It really is sad to see that that's what we're gonna be bringing into a neighborhood, that needs beautifying. So I understand we're gonna have, in the long run, that the greenway, which is great, but, you know, we gotta make it all nice on both sides of this, street.
I can probably chime in on that one. So yes, I think we all agree that we would want. Sorry, can everyone else just mute while we're talking?
Yeah, someone else is reverberating. I think you're okay now.
Okay. So yeah, I think we agree in concept that we would want to introduce green elements into any design in the public right of way. I think it's also important just to take a measured approach and think about what that means too. You know, with anything that's green, it's living, it grows, it needs maintenance. We're not hiring more gardeners to maintain the space either. So usually we'd like to partner with a BID or a local residential group or somebody that can help maintain and beautify the space as well. So that's one consideration to think about. Like every space where people say, "Hey, make that green," we should also figure out who's going to be cutting it and picking up the trash and everything else in there. And secondly, I also I think it's worth mentioning. While again, I agree in concept with greening where possible. Let's look at what's there now versus what's being proposed. What's there now is asphalt. It's just a darker shade of gray. We're not taking away grass and turning it into concrete. We would be turning asphalt into concrete. So I think that's one thing to think about as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at it like this, if you have the opportunity to make it beautified and make it a community base and not concrete, and we have that opportunity, let's do it right. And make the space look like and feel like a community and not concrete.
And we do have a lot of parks groups, by the way, in that area. I'm sure we could find someone if we need to help volunteer to maintain some of these green spaces. We have a lot in that area.
Yeah, no, we hear you. And as we said, we'll add as many trees as we can to the concrete elements. One of the limiting factors is DEP though. If we have sewers that run underneath where we're going to be adding the concrete, we can't put trees above those because those roots will eventually get into the sewer pipes and will break the pipes. So we work with parks to get trees where we can. And if DEP says there's a conflict, that's somewhere we can't plant trees. So we take your suggestion under, we're taking that back to our team. What now?
Yeah, grass, or it could be plantings or grass even, not necessarily trees, even though we love trees.
Yeah, we'll look at those options and we'll get back to you.
All right, I'm just two more people from the public, Dan?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, there's a lot of information here tonight, and I don't know what the committee's plans are between, items 4 and item 5. And I would ask that the committee lay both items over to the May meeting in order for the public to actually get this information. There's a lot of the plan. Nobody's seen this plan before tonight.
Correct.
And there's a lot of stakeholders in the community that I'm sure would like to see it and comment on it, either in favor or perhaps opposed to certain items. And I would ask that items 4 and 5 be laid over to next month, so that way the public can get this plan. It can be disseminated to various community groups. People can see it and then come in next month and comment on the plans 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And the committee will then have an opportunity to vote on both plans and then send the committee vote to the full board in the month of June.
Well, we're not voting this evening. This is just information.
Understood, and which is great, and I think that's amazing, especially because there's so much information here.
Correct.
Each of those intersections, you could probably have a 2-hour conversation on easily, right?
Yeah.
So to give the community an opportunity to review this material and then come in next month and discuss it, and then the committee gets an opportunity to vote after hearing all of the comments from the community, I think would be a sound plan. And again, I just recommend that to the committee and to Madam Chair.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, could you clarify what is happening to the parking spots, for instance, that are along the bike path that are on Bailey? Those are the 46 parking spots that are gone, or about from that. Okay. That was my question. I didn't know from that plan how those work. And then a second question would be, there's a lot of driveways along that path. I know you showed one. It would be similar for all the driveways along that path where you have markings on the ground so that people from those houses, for instance, I live in one of those houses. So like they will be easily be able to leave our driveway to get on Bailey.
Yes, let me reshare my screen just so I can show this to you visually. Am I sharing it? No. Okay, now I'm sharing it. So here's the example that I had showed earlier, but it also shows parked cars. So we have this floating parking lane where these gray cars are parked. So by and large on the west curb, there's going to be no real changes to parking along the
Okay.
curb, but along the west curb, where we have this bike lane and the pedestrian islands, we'll have this floating parking, which will protect the bike lane, but also continue to allow parking for the vast majority of Bailey Avenue along the west curb. It's just at the intersections where we have some of these treatments that are in the parking lane. And yeah, we're working out the drawing plan for the whole corridor, but they'll generally be looking like this to maintain access on the west curb.
And if I could take the opportunity just to quickly just talk about the comment on the parking repurposing as well. I think it's important to take a step back and look at the big picture here. We're talking about over a mile of a project. This is a very long stretch, and that's 46 spots. If you look at it in terms of blocks, and these are very long blocks, but it's basically, if you look at a standard city grid block, it's like 10, 11 blocks. You do the math, 46 divided by 10 or 11, it's about 4 spots per block. And really, it's just the corners. If you look at it, really, it's protecting to create the turn bays, to make the turn safer. And if we were to come here and bring you a presentation for like 3 blocks, that number may be smaller, but it's a bigger number of spots for a way bigger number of blocks.
But it still impacts the community.
Agreed. Understood. I just want to contextualize that.
Just 2 more people, and because we still have more on our agenda tonight. So let's do Camelia because we haven't heard from her, and then Karen.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you, DOT, for looking at this project. I live in Spuyten Duyvil, and my son goes to school actually in Kingsbridge Heights. So actually, on my way back from work, I take Bailey literally on a daily basis. So I can appreciate sort of your approach that did address a lot of the issues. My personal favorite is the left turning bays and also the shortening of crossing of pedestrians. There was also a law that passed, I think 3 years ago, maybe, when as a driver, when you make a right turn, even if the crossing is extremely long, so you see the pedestrian starting crossing, I don't know, 50 feet away, you still have to wait for it, for the pedestrian to cross before you can actually go right, even though you could go safely, right? But this putting islands in between kind of obviously allows you to actually take the right faster because the pedestrian is reaching an island, right? So that is important. But I want to address the points on the green space and the fact that you are, in fact, you are replacing, like the commissioner said, you're replacing asphalt with pavement. So in fact, if you do add an island and you are adding on it some sort of porous soil, that is net added green space. But I also want to focus on the point of the commissioner in terms of that we need maintenance from somebody. I mean, I run a bid in the East Bronx, so I deal with tripits all the time. So it's easy to say, hey ho, let's plant stuff, but then somebody has to be in charge of maintenance. And here I think, we all want more green space, but I think there is a role for leaving this proposal out for a little bit, and also for community board to support reaching out to the community and promoting this proposal and explaining to people that some sort of little groups will have to be created around the new green spaces that will be in place and the maintenance of those. Because even a tiny minor triangle that I have, for example, at Cape Oak and North Crescent where I live, and there is a lady in my building that takes care of it on a weekly basis, because if not, it goes really bad really quickly. The other thing I wanted to just ask, sort of for my information, as I'm on Morris Park Avenue, and that has bike lanes added since 6 years ago, on both sides. When you propose this, and I see this is like a double bike lane, right? Did you also did you also consider the model where there's sort of one-way bike lanes on both sides, and was that sort of not good? And what was kind of the main reason that you decided to have it like that? But overall, I just want to to say that I think this is very important work and just to kind of to thank you. But if you could explain like the bike lane thing and to still kind of get the community started on the green patches and give them some plans to start with, sort of say. Thank you so much.
So I'll defer to the borough commissioner about issues of stewardship of green spaces. But the question about the side of the street for the bike lane is one we considered quite extensively. The reason why we chose the two-way bike path on the west curb, there are a couple of reasons. And the lane on Morris Park Avenue, I think that you're describing, I think that's just a standard bike lane. It's not parking protected, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, but so this design works on the west curb for a few reasons. One, we were thinking about the connection to the park to the north, which currently exists, and that is going to be on the west curb to get cyclists across Van Cortlandt Park South. That maintains the continuity of cyclists continuing into Van Cortlandt Park, into the park and to the greenway there, and that keeps us sort of like thematically aligned with this idea that we're designing this greenway, the Harlem River Greenway. Additionally, a one-way protected bike path on, like, you see this design. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example in the Bronx, but they do exist around the city where we'll just have like a one-way protected bike lane with parking moved out into the street. That is associated with a lot more parking loss, because right now we're only looking at the parking loss on the west curb, and when we add one-way protected bike lanes on both sides of the street, it means we're removing parking on both sides, and we weren't interested in doing that. So that was another major factor, and then thirdly, this allowed for protected crossings for cyclists and pedestrians. This allowed us to explore these new protected left turn signals that we've implemented across the across the corridor. So it fell in line with our interest in exploring safety benefits for all users, not just cyclists. Hope that answers your question.
Karen?
Hi, sorry, I didn't know how to unmute. I think this is a lot of work that you did, and I think you did a great job. I was involved in the Harlem River Greenway presentation and saw part of it, and I understand the whole need for the safety. I think that's really something that's urgent. I will say that I'm concerned about the question about drainage, because the existing drainage is inadequate. Not only is it inadequate, it's the lowest point in most of the area of Community Board 8. And so everything just drains on both sides of the hill. And so I wouldn't worry about the DEP and the trees. I think that you will have to put in green infrastructure, not just trees or plants or stuff like that. And those things are going to take the place of a sewer that they're never going to build. And so the people to take care of them should be the agency that builds it and has to take care of whatever's going on with the drainage. So I think we should talk about that. Especially if you find that you're going to run into problems with, where the pipe is. I don't really know where the pipe is, but I'm thinking it's under the sidewalk myself. But you call a certain number and they tell you all that stuff.
Yeah, what I was saying before is that not that we can't add concrete above sewers, and that adding concrete will cause drainage issues. We do not build concrete elements unless we are positive that they will not increase any type of drainage concerns in the area. We're not in the business of building new concrete to make puddles. My comment was more about what kind of plants we can plant on top of existing sewers. And as we work with Parks, which plants our trees, and DEP, who reviews that before we plant the trees. Parks will not plant a tree above a DEP sewer line. And that's all my only point. We hear your point about drainage. We're not going to do anything here to create more drainage issues.
Well, if you create more impervious surfaces, you're going to create more drainage issues.
To Anthony's point before, the spots where we're proposing concrete, it's currently asphalt. We're upgrading it to concrete. When we say upgrading it, it's because we're creating a sidewalk so pedestrians are off the roadbed. They're not at the same grade as a vehicle. And so if people are crossing on the asphalt now and they're walking across asphalt, we raise it up. Now it's a contiguous sidewalk. That's safer for the pedestrians as they're off the
Well, you
roadbed.
also know that you could use porous asphalt, porous concrete, and the DEP uses that a lot.
In capital projects, this is not a capital project. We do not use porous concrete or porous asphalt with in-house resources.
I thought that was a change that came with the city of Yes for carbon neutrality.
There is a unified stormwater law. Is
Yes,
that the one you're
right.
talking about? That's
No.
for capital projects.
No, not for capital. I'm talking about the carbon neutrality city of Yes. And in that they said that we'll send comments in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Larry will be the last question from the public.
Okay, I live on the northern end of Bailey Avenue, and it's a 180 unit building, and I don't think that some of our needs have been considered, namely that throughout the day we are getting deliveries, we are having maintenance vehicles coming and double parking in front of the building, and we're having taxis and people pick up and accessorize for many of our disabled tenants. And I can't imagine with the plan, as I understand it, hopefully correctly, this is going to be accommodated, and I could only see chaos resulting from these vehicles trying to do what they have to do for the residents who live in this area, in this building in particular, and several other buildings along the line. That's my comments.
Okay, thank you. And there's a gentleman in the room, and this is the last question.
My name is Thomas Proctor. I live nearby in the South Bronx, and I travel through here quite often. I wanted to talk a little bit about a slide that the DOT went through quite quickly about the statistics about safety and provide my personal experience. My brother 5 years ago was killed while traveling through an intersection that, just like all of these intersections we talked about today, is incredibly wide and allowed people to make turns at very high speed. The driver made a left through one of these turns and hit my brother head on. He was riding with his girlfriend, who had just signed a lease to move in with. Instead, he died in her arms. DOT has talked about the people who died here. Just want to emphasize that safety is important. That there's trade-offs here, but the trade-offs are lives, and I hope that board can take that into account.
Thank you, and I'm so sorry for your loss, and we're sorry for your loss. Okay, so we're going to move on to our agenda. Thank you, DOT. And if you can please provide us with the slides and the information so we can post that on our website. And we will have you again so we can just have more engagement from the public, because there's a lot of information here and we want to be able to give the best information to the public so we can make the right decisions at the right time. Thank you.
Anthony, did you get my email this morning?
Yes.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the agenda and just do roll call. Okay. I am the chairperson for traffic and transportation, and for the committee, I am present. Mary Ellen Gibbs,
Absent.
Sylvia Alexander,
Here.
Dr. Wayne DeBeetham,
Present.
Margaret Della,
Present.
Ingrid DeLeon,
She's absent.
absent.
Do you have quorum?
Okay, we do. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna move on to dining out, Broadway and Sidewalk Cafe application, Cochina Tente. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here in person. And, anybody from the committee has any questions for this business? How is business?
Picking up, I'm not gonna lie, last couple of months struggling, but we're making it through.
So I was able to actually to visit the site itself, and I did, have some, questions in terms of foot traffic, visibility, where it sits in relation to the sidewalk and the curb itself on the, business side, more towards the building, because you have an enclosed.
We have the patio.
The patio that's enclosed, and I saw there was like a pipe that was at an angle that would look like it was holding up something.
So it's not, it's actually there. We're gonna remove it. It's gonna be gone right before the 7th.
Okay, and then I had a question about the garbage cans, because I went there twice.
Yeah, no.
And it impedes, when cars are parked, for people to be able to actually exit their cars to get to your business,
No.
because the garbage cans are there, so.
Is it located?
Yes. It's gonna be in our roof. They're actually gonna go pick it up in our roof.
So they will all be removed and will be placed on top of the roof, and that's where will be picked up from the garbage company.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're going tomorrow, so that we could show them where it's gonna be picked up. So starting hopefully tomorrow.
Are they gonna
those
do
will
that
be
with
there.
the other businesses in the area?
I'm speaking about, I don't know about the others, because the other is like right next to the bus stop, actually, it's right there.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna ask you with the bus stop, has there been any issues with the bus stop and pedestrians?
Oh, thank God. No.
Where is it located?
Hold on 1 second. Yeah. We're committee people first and then the public. Margaret, any questions about the applicant?
I mean, I don't have a question. I love Cocina Gente, and I think it's always really clean and well presented and very welcoming, so I'm in support.
Thank you.
I do have a quick question, because you did say you're gonna remove what's there, because that's not what's in compliance, right? With the new requirements.
Yes.
So there's no picture yet of what it's gonna look like on the sidewalk or on the roadway?
No, because this is city. The city is the one who's going to actually, that's how it's gonna be now. Like, it's no longer us. They're the ones who are gonna provide,
They're
basically.
gonna provide the
Yes,
structure?
yes. Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. And this is Cochina Chente on
3535 Riverdale Avenue.
Wayne, any questions?
I know that this imaging has the street, has
Yes,
a street patio.
It's no longer gonna be like that. It's gonna be smaller as well, because as I mentioned before, it's the city who's gonna provide it.
Okay.
The dimensions are over here, it's gonna be 17.5 times 8, so it's only gonna hold, I would say, about 6 tables. Compared to before, in which we had more. Yeah, no, it's gonna be smaller. It's gonna hold, I would say, like 3 parking spots, about 3 parking spots at most. That's what I think, or less, 2, I don't know, depending.
What does it have now?
No, right now, we have to remove it, in November, so right now, there's nothing there. We have a hearing on the 7th.
On the 7th.
On the 7th.
I mean, I would, you know, I've had the opportunity to down there and I frequently walk past the area and, again, I certainly do think that personally, I do feel like having the option for the outdoor dining is something that does enhance the area. I think the only concern that I've had walking is just between and some of it's not your fault, the construction awning, which is adjacent. And then that narrow, it definitely feels like a very kind of tight, narrow corridor. But I think beyond that, you know, it's not a circumstance where I haven't seen anything where anyone's been impeded. It just does feel a little bit tight, but I think that, again, some of these are factors beyond your control, so you can't control them.
Yeah.
Sylvia, do you have any questions?
Well, I wanted to know, where is the outdoor cafe going to be? In the street itself or on the sidewalk?
It's both.
I couldn't really tell from the pictures.
Right? It's both.
Excuse me?
You were sent 2 applications. One is for the sidewalk and one is for the roadway. It's both.
It's both.
I'm concerned about the roadway because that has the approach, the shortcut up into Riverdale to 35th Street. It has a traffic light newly installed halfway up the hill on Riverdale Avenue. And then it has the other traffic going south on Riverdale Avenue. And that is really an accident waiting to happen if it's in the roadway. I'm very concerned about that. Maybe you could explain it better and I would understand it better, but the way I saw it on the computer, it looks like a dangerous thing in the street.
It's not gonna.
Yeah, with the new light, which we had this one before.
Okay, you can speak up so.
I'm so sorry. So we actually had it before when we removed it back in November and the light was actually there. Thank God. And that one was actually bigger and longer. This one is gonna be much smaller. And thank God there was no accident whatsoever at all. Not because of us. It had, not at all. So I don't
Thank you.
think that's gonna be, yes. Thank you.
And the previous structure had been up since the pandemic.
Yes, that
And
had been there
right,
for,
so what's-
yes,
and
and
there-
no issues,
and there've
absolutely
been no
not.
issues.
Yes.
Any questions from the public? I think someone had their hand up.
I think David did, but I think you had.
Yeah, I was concerned about where it is, and it seems like it is at the location on Riverdale Avenue where essentially there are no nearby residences, which has always been my concern, that it would interfere with the quiet enjoyment with outdoor cafes, but there, the nearest residence is probably 75 yards across Riverdale Avenue.
Well, there's a building right next
Yeah.
to it, but they don't seem to be affected.
But it's not allowed business.
Yeah.
It closed pretty early as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Very good,
Even
thank
on
you.
weekends, like, we're closed by 11.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have we have to vote on 2.
So we need to vote on this
applications.
applicant.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so everybody in favor of the applicant's, Conchente application sidewalk
And road.
and road sidewalk, cafe to be approved?
Margaret says yes.
Aye.
Sylvia,
Yes.
in favor? So it's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you. We will present the application to the full board.
Thank you.
On that day. Thank you.
You don't have to
We
say.
can do-
Be nice, Sarah.
Okay,
You're
so
right.
next on the agenda is, street, renaming, well, amendment for Manhattan University. Are they,
She's present,
present?
Roxanne. Here she is.
I'm taking this as everything. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I'm sorry, are you waiting on me?
Yes.
Oh,
We have your-
hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Roxanne Tashton. I'm an attorney from Cullen and Dykeman. I represent Manhattan University. It's late. The request is very simple. Manhattan University recently was renamed and acknowledged as a university by the Regents. It changed its name from Manhattan College, which was founded in the 1800s, to Manhattan University in August of 2024. The university, I submitted a letter on April 11th, which, provides some detail about the school's commitment to service, social justice, diversity, inclusivity, and names some of the longstanding contributions that Manhattan has provided to the community. The school is currently located on Manhattan College Parkway. Therein lies the problem. It is now Manhattan University. The request is simply to rename Manhattan College Parkway, Manhattan University Parkway, to acknowledge the school's achievement of becoming a university and reduce confusion.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we've heard.
She submitted
Their
three.
application,
Yeah.
we reviewed it, we received it. So I move that we accept the renaming, changing it from the college to Manhattan University. Is there any questions before us? Are we ready to vote?
Does anyone have
Any questions?
I have a question. There are people that have homes on Manhattan College Parkway. Have they been spoken to, and do they realize that their street is going to be a different name? I mean, they're getting their mail and everything else delivered there. It won't exist any longer if we rename it? Have they been contacted?
The university has not publicized this request other than making the request to the community board.
I would think that that would be something germane to doing our vote, because those people have no say in what their address will now be.
I do see that the Methodist home was contacted and it did write a letter of support. They're directly affected.
Yeah.
They're on Manhattan College Parkway.
But the residents, I think he's saying.
Yeah.
I guess related to that, one of the questions I would have is, would this be a full renaming, or would this be as in like an honorific renaming? So you could say you have Hostos Parkway, AKA 239, so they're both known by the same name. I mean, I do understand from a logistics perspective, mail going to a street that no longer exists. So unless it's mapped with the postal service or known as both names, this could be a potential logistical nightmare. I mean, as a Dartmouth alum, from an institution where we fought to keep the name Dartmouth College, I understand the importance of naming, but I agree with a lot of the committee that this is potentially problematic if we don't do this right.
And what's the cost to people who didn't decide?
Well, do you want to talk about it with the condition that it's supported by the residents in the community, or?
Can we lay it, or postpone it? Is there a deadline that you have to rename it?
Here,
And get in touch with those people?
for the council to vote on it, we have to give our recommendations by May 16th for the June vote. Otherwise, it will get pushed to December. Which, you know.
Would that make a difference to the Manhattan University? I mean, I think it would, if I lived on that street, I would feel a little bit shocked.
I mean, one of the concerns that Manhattan University has raised is, I mean, the whole reason for the renaming is in part because a lot of individuals, potential students, don't recognize, don't know that it is a university, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the longer that they do have this discrepancy between their institution name, I mean, if you can imagine going to Manhattan University on Manhattan College Parkway would be kind of discordant. So I imagine that they would like to have this rectified as expeditiously as possible.
Manhattan University Parkway?
That's correct. The name did change in August of 2024. So we would like to get it done as soon as possible. And with that said, we would, put forth any efforts necessary to gain support of the residential neighbors and assist in any way possible.
I bring that up only because I think the community board should be aware of something like that. But I am all for a change in name, but I don't live on that street. Just wanted to say that.
Is there any way to determine exactly how many homes are affected? I mean, there are some apartment buildings, but I mean, there are also.
Is Fieldston School on Manhattan College Parkway?
Yeah.
How do they feel about it?
Yeah, have you reached out to them?
No, we have not reached out to them. We have letters of support from Fort Independence Park and Neighborhood Association, Riverdale Yonkers Society for Ethical Culture, and the Methodist Home for Nursing and Rehabilitation, all of whom supported the
Yeah,
request.
so the ethical culture school, I mean, Margaret, I know, I get the connection to Fort Independence Park Neighborhood Association, but it's not necessarily relevant to this decision. The Methodist home, it's great to see that, but Fieldston is a massive school that's right there. I'm surprised there isn't a response from them.
Well, as far as I know, the school did not reach out to them. Is that incorrect, Margaret?
Are you talking to us?
No.
Okay.
Margaret Gordon.
I don't know that the school reached out to Fieldston.
Maybe we have to get more letters of support from the directly affected.
Well, how does land
buildings.
use handle notification? They just have to contact people? Cause is it just the stretch between basically Fieldston and Broadway?
Yeah.
That snakes along, so there's
a bunch of
ethical,
businesses.
there's Fieldston, there's Ethical Culture School. There's at least 4 or 5 residences that snake along that way.
What about?
And then Methodist.
Can I make a suggestion?
And then there's those apartment buildings as you get down to Broadway.
Right.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure, yes.
I was just thinking that I know after this committee, the board will have to vote. Could we agree to reach out to all the residences and institutions on Manhattan College Parkway between now and then? So they have a chance to weigh in?
Yeah, they would have to write a letter with their opinion, about it.
I mean,
How would you contact them? What method would you use to contact them? And we would be able to assure that it was done.
They usually send it by certified notification and give us a copy of it and all the list of all the people they send it to. at least for land use.
Ethical Fieldston School is on Fieldston Road, according to the
Oh, it
website.
is, so that's good to
That's
know.
good to know.
So they're not affected. So it'd be from the Methodist home down to Broadway.
And
And
which actually be, I mean, from, we're looking at,
The
it
map.
actually goes from, it technically would go from Henry Hudson. But
Yeah,
all
right,
of this is,
it's-
you know, all the way down.
But if
Deborah?
they
Yeah, but
don't-
that's
if
that
they
big
use the
interchange right there.
Fieldston- See how they use the
Right.
Fieldston road address, so this is all Fieldston. So
Deborah?
it's not a. This Ethical Culture sent a letter.
David, yes?
Yeah, I just want to say, you may not know, but that was actually Spuyten Duyvil Parkway. And then as an accommodation, it was renamed to Manhattan College Parkway. It was probably about 50 years ago. And I imagine this will be in place. Oh, by the way, it does go all the way over to Henry Hudson Parkway, Service Road, West. But it'll probably be in place for another 50 years or so. I think it can wait a couple of days to get the input from the neighbors, just like land use does.
Thank you, David.
In support of that.
So as a committee, or do we want to hold this over until we have further involvement from the community regarding the name change? And we will re-invite the applicant once we have evidence that that was done. So we have the community involved in the process.
So then we're saying that the vote, she'll have to wait to
You have
push
to wait.
this to
Mhm.
December.
The December.
Because we don't have enough time to get the community's
Input.
Right.
before then. Otherwise, they're not gonna approve it, which I think you'd rather that they do that.
And even the process was.
of course,
Has to hold over for 2 meetings anyway.
Yes.
so is the committee then requesting that we, the school notify everyone with an address on Manhattan College Parkway, certified mail, return receipt requested? Is that what, okay. And then are you also looking for additional letters of support, or will that be sufficient?
Any responses, we should be notified on, either in support or not in support.
Okay.
It's important that we know how the community feels.
Okay,
And
we will
we-
provide the responses, but you're not,
Just so you know, when you notify them about this request, you also should notify them so that they can attend the next Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting if they wish to do so, where you'll be discussing this.
okay. We will do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Is David still on his
I think he just put it up again.
Yeah,
Uh,
real
David,
quick. By the way, there is a Manhattan College Parkway on either side of the overpass on the Henry Hudson Parkway.
Yeah, but who lives there?
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying the community will see it. That's all. That's all. Nice helmet.
Okay.
Roxanne, are you related to Rich Testian?
Okay. We need to move on to agenda.
Rich
Okay.
Tashin is my dad, yes.
Fellow governor at the NYAC.
Let's mute him. Okay. We have budget priorities that.
Tell him
we
I
need
said
to
hi.
submit To the
Will
budget
do.
committee.
Did we vote on the minutes already?
We didn't.
We did.
And
Okay.
we just need to, we have it before us. I know we reviewed it on the last meeting. And I just want to be sure that we want to continue with these 4 choices in terms of what we're submitting to the budget committee for year 2027. The 238th Street Waldo and Waldo Irving, those step streets. For number 1, and number 2, 231st Street and Sedgwick Avenue / Kingsbridge Terrace. We agreed on, and 231st Street and Summit Avenue, which I know we have a letter of support for for that to be improved. And, number 4, 230th Street and Netherland Avenue, Hummus Park to Irwin Street. So I'm going to, since we already voted on this, I'll submit it to the budget chair and I'll make sure to have it in its template and that will be done.
Great.
And I believe we have no unfinished business and we have no new business.
Can I just ask a question about the budget that you just mentioned?
Sure.
You mentioned, did you say the Summit Place steps?
Oh, I was
No,
gonna.
Summit Avenue.
Yeah, between Heath and Bailey, but they are coming next month to talk about the capital plan is actually happening. And they're actually coming in next month to talk about the plan to rehabilitate.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
That's-
Yes.
Yeah.
DOT will be back and DDC.
Okay, great. Excellent.
Did I do it wrong?
Did you approve the
adjourn.
minutes?
Oh, minutes.
Yes.
Please?
I'm sorry, because we got things out of,
Oh, sorry. Motion to approve the minutes?
for March 20th.
Yes.
Everybody, anybody
In
against it?
favor? No.
Aye, including you, Sylvia, for the minutes for. I think she's frozen.
Is she? Sylvia?
No, she's still.
Are you in favor of the minutes? Opposed?
I think she's frozen.
Oh,
No, she's
I'm
not.
sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Are you in favor of the minutes?
For March 20th.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
Okay. Really?
and motion to adjourn? Dr. Wayne,
Second.
all right, cool.
Okay, aye, everybody voting?
Yes,
Yes.
in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations,
Madam
your
Chair.
first meeting. Brilliant.